Hey everyone and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I'm going to be going through the top 10 series that I would like to start in 2022. So I made a video like this last year where I talked through the top 10 series that I wanted to start in 2021, and it actually ended up being pretty successful. I did end up reading all of the books that I wanted to, and that was mostly because at the end of the year I did a video reacting to the original video, and any series that I hadn't started yet I did start in a reading vlog. So because it was a pretty good way of holding myself accountable, I thought I would do the same again this year. Let's be honest, I probably shouldn't be starting any new series right now considering how many series I'm currently in the middle of, but I thought I would do another video at some point where I talk about some series that I've started that I would like to prioritise to continue. All of the series that I put on today's list are series where I already own the first book in those series, so I thought this would be a good way for me to try and get through my own TBR. Some of these I own physically and some of them I own on my Kindle, because what I tend to do is if I see a book that's the first book in a series and it's a series that I'm vaguely interested in and it shows up in a 99p Kindle deal, then I will buy the first book because I always think, well, I'll get around to it eventually, but then I don't. And that is how I have ended up with over 100 unread books on my Kindle. But anyway, I feel like I've been rambling and I need to get into the books because I'm going to be talking about these for a while, and I'm going to try and give quick synopsises because obviously I haven't read these series yet and I don't want to say anything that's wrong. But actually the first series that I wanted to talk about is a series that I've technically started because it's the Liveship Traders trilogy by Hobb, and the first book in this series is called Ship of Magic. This is the second series within the realm of the Ouderlings, and I have already read the Farseer trilogy, which is the first trilogy within the realm of the Ouderlings, and had mixed thoughts on it because I really liked the first book and then I enjoyed the second book, but I didn't really like Assassin's Quest, which is the third book in the trilogy. It actually ended up being one of my most disappointing books of last year, so I have been a little nervous about going into this series. However, I have heard that because this is quite different, even if you didn't love the Farseer trilogy, there's still a good chance that you'll enjoy the Liveship Traders. I'm pretty sure actually that this series does work as a standalone if you wanted to start with this series, but don't quote me on that because I'm not 100% sure. In terms of a synopsis for this, we are following a family called the Vestrid family, I think, and it's set in this place called Bingtown where you have a lot of like shipping trade that's going on, and so I think that there's a lot of small town politics and a lot of family drama because essentially there are these ships called live ships in this world, and for a ship to come alive you have to have several members of the same family die on board, and we follow this girl called Althea who's always assumed that she's gonna inherit her family's ship when it comes alive. However, when her father passes away, she finds out that the ship is actually going to her older sister. It's a pretty chunky book. I think the first book is over 650 pages, but the audiobooks are available on Scribd, so I'm probably going to alternate between the two when I do eventually get around to this. The next series on my list is Crown of Feathers by Nikki Preto, and I'm pretty sure that this series is called Crown of Feathers. I know that the first book is also called Crown of Feathers, and so I'm just assuming that that's what the rest of the series is called, but I was meant to read this series last year and then I didn't. I put it on several TBRs and just never got round to it, and I'm really annoyed at myself because I feel like it is a series that I could potentially really love. I've heard that even though it's a young adult fantasy, it does lean more towards older YA because it has quite a complex political system, and I love political fantasies, and so when I heard that it had me really intrigued. And also this has Phoenix Riders, which sounds really cool, and I think it also has a sister relationship, which sounds like something I would enjoy because I have sisters, and so I enjoy reading about sisterly dynamics within books. But yeah, really annoyed at myself that I haven't read this yet, so it's one that I would like to prioritise in 2022. The next series on my list is The Villain's Duology by V. Schwab. So the first book in this series is called Vicious, and I have been trying to get Vicious out of this box set, but it's just not shifting, so I'm going to hold the whole thing up and just hope that my arm can cope with the weight. But I have read two books by V. Schwab. I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue and A Dark Shade of Magic, both last year, and I enjoyed them. I think I actually gave both of them 4 stars or 3.5 stars, so I'm still holding out hope that I can get a 5 stars from V. Schwab, and I've heard that this is one of their most popular series. The synopsis also sounds really interesting because it's about 2 college roommates called Victor and Eli who work out that they can give themselves magical powers by having near-death experiences, and so I think they have this rivalry where they keep almost killing each other to get more and more powers. But then the book picks up a few years later where one of them has just been released from prison and they're now mortal enemies for some reason. So sounds really intriguing. My mum actually got me this box set for Christmas or my birthday last year, so it is one that I would like to get round to soon. I have heard mixed things about the second book in this duology. I've seen a lot of people love the first book and then absolutely hated the second book, and so that has me really intrigued. I'm really interested to read this duology and just see how I feel about it. The next series on my list is the Broken Earth Trilogy by N.K. Jemison, and the first book in this series is called The Fifth Season. I think this is sci-fi as well as being fantasy because it's set on an alternative Earth where there are a lot of environmental issues like earthquakes, and there are people in this world who can sense when these earthquakes are about to happen, but they are very much feared and persecuted, I think. Part of the book is also told in the second person perspective, which does make me feel a little bit nervous because I don't usually like second person POV. I have also unfortunately seen a spoiler for the first book in this series, which is a little bit annoying. However, I've heard a lot of people say that after they read the first book, they wanted to go back and reread it because of this spoiler, and so I think that it's not going to massively affect my enjoyment and it might actually end up being a really interesting reading experience. I know that N.K. Jemison is a really popular fantasy author, and so I would still love to read the series to see what I think of it. The next series on my list is Kingdom of the Wicked by Kerri Maniscalco. So this is a fantasy romance that follows a witch called Amelia whose twin sister has just been brutally murdered, and she decides to use dark magic to try and get revenge and find out who killed her sister. But she ends up summoning a prince from hell, and it's a fantasy romance, and so I've made a lot of assumptions about what happens in the first book. I've heard that this is a really fun series. I don't think the series is complete yet. I think the first 2 books are out and then the third book comes out later this year, but I've also heard that this is set in an Italian inspired world and that there's a lot of amazing descriptions of food, which sounds, wow, amazing. I've been trying to find out whether this is YA or adult, and I think the first book starts off as YA and then the second book is more new adult, and then I don't know about the third book. I'm assuming that it is going to become more adult as the series goes on. The next book on my list is The Lies of Lamora by Lynch, and this is actually the first book in the Gentleman Bastard series, which I don't think is actually complete yet. I assumed it was when I bought the first book, but I think there's still more books to come. I don't know how many books there's going to be in the series, but all I really know about this first book is that it's a heist plot and it has morally grey characters and found family, and do I actually even need to know any more than that? I have heard that the first book does actually work as a standalone though, and so my thinking was maybe I could read the first book and then just continue the series once it is completed. The next series on my list is Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin, I think is how you pronounce the author's name. So this is a fantasy romance between a witch and a witch hunter, and I think it's also a forced marriage situation where the witch knows that she's marrying a witch hunter, but the witch hunter doesn't know that she's a witch, and it's like enemies to lovers. I don't know a lot about the plot for this book, but I do know that it gets very, very mixed reviews. I've seen people give it 5 stars and I've seen people give it 1 star. I've also heard a lot of people say that it's one of those books that's so bad it's good because it's entertaining, and so I'm really interested to see which side I fall on with this one. The next series on my list is Mistborn Era 2 by Brandon Sanderson. So the first book in this series is The Alloy of Law, and I'm pretty sure that this is going to be a quartet because I think the 4th book actually comes out later this year, and it would be nice to catch up and be able to read the 4th book when it comes out. All I really know about this series is that it's set within the same world as the original Mistborn series, but it follows a completely different set of characters because it's set several hundred years after the end of the Hero of Ages. Really intrigued about this one because I haven't heard many people that absolutely love this series in comparison to Mistborn Era 1. I've also heard that it has a Western setting, and I don't think I've read many books like that, but I've also heard that Brandon Sanderson does some interesting stuff with the magic system in this. So the magic system within the world of Mistborn is all to do with allomancy. There are people within this world that can ingest metal and it gives them magical abilities. Yeah, no idea how I'm going to feel about this, but the books are pretty short, so I'm hoping that I can read them quite quickly. Next on my list is Raybearer by Jordan Ifueko. So this is a YA fantasy, I think, that's set in an African-inspired world. It follows a girl called Tarisai, I think is how you pronounce her name, and she lives in this empire where you have an emperor and also a crown prince, and for every person that they appoint to their council, they become immune to one type of death. However, the people on their council are still able to kill them, and Tarisai is sent to compete to be chosen to be on this council. However, she is actually a plant because I think she's been cursed by her mother to kill the crown prince, and so she has no say in the matter, even though that's not really what she wants to do because she actually likes the crown prince. And so I think it's about her trying to battle against her destiny. I've heard amazing reviews for this, and I also like that it's a duology, so because it's only 2 books, it's less commitment and there's more chance of me actually finishing the series. The final series on my list is Pantomime by Laura Lamb. So I think that Pantomime is the name of the series as well as being the name of the first book, but my sister actually got me this series for Christmas in 2020 and I still haven't got round to it, and so that's why I'm putting it on this TBR, so I do definitely start it this year. I actually did a bit of research into the synopsis for this series because I hadn't heard of it before I got it, and I think this is an older series. I think it came out in 2012 or 2013, but from my research what I understand is that when this book was released, the synopsis talked about how this is a story about a debutante called Jean and a circus performer called Michah Gray. However, that's actually quite misleading because it led people to believe that this was a romance about star-crossed lovers, when actually Jean and Michah are the same person and they are intersex. Yeah, I think the marketing for this book when it first came out wasn't great because it's not a spoiler to say that a book has a certain type of representation. However, they have since changed the synopsis, so the synopsis on this does explicitly say that Michah and Jean are the same person, and I think you learn that quite early on in the book anyway. The new synopsis does actually say that this is a story about Jean, who runs away to join the circus because their parents are not great and they reinvent themselves as Michah Gray. I do really love the sound of this book because of the circus setting and how it's recommended for people who like the night circus, which I have read and I did enjoy. So I'm really hoping that this has great atmosphere and interesting characters, and because I haven't heard anyone talking about this book ever, I have no expectations going into it, and that's quite exciting because that doesn't happen to me often now. Most of the books I pick up are books that I've heard about through recommendations or through BookTube, and so I'm hoping that I love it, obviously because my sister got me this for Christmas and I really don't like it when I don't like books that people have gifted me. But that does bring me to the end of the list and the end of the video, so thanks for watching. If you've made it this far, let me know in the comments if you've read any of these series and what you thought of them, and let me know if there are any books or series that you are hoping to start this year. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it and click subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time. Bye!